expects from an airport sponsor to remain compliant with federal laws and their grant assurances. The airport ability determinations, and then there's some U.S. code that requires a 30-day minimum written notice to FAA that you're planning to close your airport. I do want to bring up that the FAA's primary criterion when reviewing these things is a net benefit to aviation, and that's to aviation only. Economic and community benefits aren't considered. The net benefit proof, you have to really demonstrate that existing airports can absorb the operations and aircraft that currently operate at Burke without degrading safety. They'll evaluate the role of the airport within the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, or the NIPIAS. You really have to prove that the closure will not increase any congestion, delays, or safety risks to other airports in the region. And really, you're demonstrating the closure would improve, that's a key word that the FAA uses, the aviation system overall. Oh, this forward. Okay. So going back to the AIP handbook, when an airport accepts federal funds for capital improvements, equipment, it also accepts grant assurances that have a life, really, depending on the type of project. Typical obligations 20 years from when an airport sponsor accepts a grant, but you can see based off of the different capital improvements and equipment, different things have different time frames. Buildings 40 years, pavement reconstruction 20 years, different types of equipment 10 and 15 years. I will add that if an airport sponsor accepts FAA funds for land, those grant obligations are in perpetuity. But Burke was constructed by placing fill on the submerged lands leased from the state, so technically there are no land grants associated with Burke. So based on the type of projects the city's accepted, this is kind of the obligation timeline that we're dealing with right now as of 2026. So the last federal grant obligation would expire in 2034. The last state obligation expires in 2039. The total grant payments right now, if the payment was made to the FAA, would be just a little over $7 million. And again, no land grants associated with Burke as it's on the submerged land lease. So we were tasked in our study to really identify the options of how to close an airport. Again, this is something that doesn't happen every day. So really there's three options. You can, option one, wait for your grant obligations to expire, which would be that 2039, 2040 timeframe. Option two, apply for closure now and then go through the FAA steps to prove that the closure is a net benefit to aviation. And then option three would be federal legislation directing the closure. So option one, you're deferring your closure till at least 2039, waiting for those federal and state grants to expire. After those grants expire, that's when you would provide FAA with a 30-day closure notice. This process of waiting out grant obligations, there's no really federal approval needed. You're just notifying the FAA that your plans to close. There's no net benefit to aviation analysis required. There would be no land lease required. It avoids the grant paybacks, obviously, because you've waited for your grant obligations to expire. Con to that, you have to operate Burke for an additional 14 years with no federal funding, because one of the grant assurances is you still have to keep your airport safe and operating, even if you're not taking FAA money. Just an example, Blue Ash Airport in Cincinnati requested to close in 2012. All their grants had expired in 2023. So this was a fairly easy process where they just notified the FAA. Just to some comparisons, their operations were 35,000 or so in the mid-90s, dropped to 15,000 right before they decided to close. Some of the idiosyncrasies with this one, the sale proceeds from the airport land remained within the system, so it went to neighboring airports. And then I believe the airport was redeveloped as sort of a recreational and mixed-use development. So option two would be applying for closure now. So we would have to submit a request outlining everything that's required in that FA Order 5190. Part of that process is proving that net benefit to aviation by closing the airport. The FAA really has full discretion to deny it in this option. And some of the things they'll consider is what kind of unique role does it serve in the Northeast Ohio system? And then what kind of level of activity that it classifies as either national or regional in the most current NIPIAS. And right now, Burke is classified as a regional airport. And then, of course, the payments would be required for the remaining unexpired grant obligations. Just a couple examples. This is an airport in Missouri that got permission to close in '87. They proved the net benefit to aviation, given the metro area of I believe this was near Kansas City, had multiple viable airports. Some of their requirements were they deposited $5 million in a FAA-controlled escrow, and then again, the regional aviation system got the funds. They had to go through the NEPA process because it was a federal action to close the airport. And then I think in 2002, they had some legal challenges that they were the FAA was found in their decision. So another example, another airport in Missouri. You can see they started their process in the 90s, finally closed in 17. They were required to pay back all their grants. They concluded that the closure was acceptable for the net benefit was proven. Kind of the differences between St. Clair Regional and Burke is, again, Burke was a regional airport with 30 plus based aircraft. St. Clair had 6. You can see the unexpired grant obligations, much less with this airport. They had no long-term leases. So really, FAA could determine that Burke closure is not a net benefit to aviation based off of runway capacity, corporate jet activity, medical transport, and things of that nature. So you can kind of see that the FAA process, some of just a couple examples that I talked about where there's some negotiation to it, I believe. It's not entirely defined. The net benefit to aviation's not entirely defined. The FAA can't even define it for us. Just some additional studies that most likely would have to happen if option 2 was the path forward. Was that net benefit to aviation study. The FAA would be looking for a financial and implementation plan, and because closing an airport's a federal action, there might be National Environmental Policy Act studies that would be required as well. So the third option is the congressional legislation option. This is basically Congress passes a law that orders the FAA to close Burke. It bypasses a lot of the FAA requirements that we just talked about with option 2. Could relieve federal grant payments, maybe not. It's all basically what's written in the bill. And that's really the bottom line, and this is from FAA, that whatever is in the legislation is the direction the FAA has to follow in the closure. And this is an example that just recently happened. This is an airport in California that Congress directed closure in the last FAA reauthorization bill that was in 2024. And that's the exact language there from the reauthorization bill. You can see their unexpired portion of development grants were repaid. Their equipment was directed to other neighboring airports, and then since they were selling the airport, they had to take those funds, fair market value that they got for the land, and pay back the FAA. So I think I'm going to hand this back to Bonnie.
Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about the airport and the existing leases that are at Burke. Currently, we have 18 leases, 18 agreements, I should say, with 15 different unique tenants. 7 of those 15 tenants are actually aviation related. The others would be non-aviation related. And most of those leases are short-term for years, even before this administration. The leases that have been negotiated have been short-term with options. And most of those leases go out to either 2028 or 2029 with renewals options out to those years. As you can imagine, Signature, they have the longest term lease, and it's a ground lease that goes out to 2043. The major tenants that we have are, as listed here. Atheris is a hangar. They have about, a little over 200,000 square feet. Signature, as I talked about, the National Air Show has their office space there, and they have a lease that goes out to 29. Our friends, our consultants, they're nice enough to lease from us. CHA Consulting Company, they have a small lease with us. And then the Women and Air Space Museum, they do have, and that's prominent in the terminal itself. And we've been actively discussing where these leases could be relocated. There's some interest with the Air and Space Museum to relocate that possibly at the Great Lakes Science Center, which would make sense. And we've been with our medical facilities, we've been in active communication with the clinic as far as the helicopter transport, as well as the fixed airport. We appreciate the conversations that we've been having with the clinic. They've been very forthcoming with the information, and they have been planning for some possible relocation too. So it's I think we're having really good conversations with them, and it's not like they're saying they can't do it. It's just a matter of how they do it. Oh, it's this one too. So the Burke operations, the interesting thing is, you always hear about Burke being a reliever airport. So the designation of the reliever airport has been taken away from Burke. It's designated by the FAA to relieve congestion by commercial service airports, reduce congestion at commercial service airports. So I apologize. So like I said, the medical operations at Burke are, is a combination of fixed air and helicopter use, and we've been in active communications with them. And like was said before, we believe that the aviation could be absorbed by either Cuyahoga County, Cleveland Hopkins, and even for the medical activities and, the other airports adjacent to it. So these are the adjacent airports and the length of runway for each one of them. First one is Cuyahoga County, second is Hopkins, third is Lake County, the LPR is Lorraine, and then 1G3 is Kent, and then the 1G5 is Medina County. You can see the comparisons as far as the actual infrastructure goes. Sorry. As far as the actual infrastructure goes, and the comparison, and with not all planes need the full length of runway that we have here at Burke, and so they can be, relocated to other locations.
There we go.
Thank you. I will be doing some questions, and then I will kick it over to council members, so start yelling at me as they answer my questions. Just one point of clarification. I don't want to get too ahead. I got you. I don't want to get too far ahead by talking about the proposed plan. That'll be the next meeting. But I just want to understand and make sure we all understand when we talk about medical operations, this is specific to your last slide. There's sort of two. I understand there's two ways medical operations can occur. One is people or organs are being brought in on a fixed wing aircraft and you need the runway. The other is by helicopter. So if the clinic needs to go to Lima to pick up a kidney, they're probably going to take a helicopter, and rather than that helicopter would not come back to Burke. That helicopter would go straight to the clinic, and really the Burke is a parking facility for helicopters, but not directly. It's not being transferred from a helicopter to a vehicle to go to the Cleveland Clinic or elsewhere. Is that correct? Just so we understand the medical operations.
That's correct, and we have had some really in-depth conversations with Cleveland Clinic about their medical operations and with all of the medical operators operating at Burke to get a better understanding of all of their operations and how it works, not only at Burke currently, but in other places of the world, to get a sense of what the impact would be if Burke was to close. As you said, Councilman, there's a couple different ways that either organs or people are brought to our healthcare facilities. Sometimes it's on a fixed wing, so a plane that lands at Burke, that's where the runway is really helpful. If they don't need the runway, then they would have just helicopter use, which is one of the reasons that we have a vertiport suggested in any conceptual future plans for Burke, is to maintain those helicopter operations to the extent that it's useful. We've also talked with those healthcare operators who have said that Cleveland Hopkins is, a very suitable place for them to be doing medical transport. They frankly like being at Burke because they're used to being at Burke, and it's always hard to change operations, but they don't foresee any major operational challenges to moving to Hopkins.
Okay, and for the audience at home, I was doing a Zoom thing in person by not having my mic on. So the question was just understanding the difference between fixed wing operations and helicopter operations as it relates to the medical uses, since that was on the last slide. Another operations question, I think news to many that Burke is no longer technically has the designation of the reliever airport. Can you speak to why that change was made and when it occurred?
I can speak to when it occurred. Maybe Mark can explain why. It was, so in the most recent publication, it was October 2024 that the FAA put out about the reliever airports. And in that publication, Burke was not listed as a reliever for the years 2025 through 2029. So they designate those reliever airports on like 5-year periods. It was also, frankly, news to me when I was looking at it, figuring out what the reliever airport piece, and knowing that Burke was not a reliever airport. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yes, the NIPIAS, that study that the FAA puts out, it's updated every 2 years, covering 4 years ahead. And the latest one that came out last October, Burke was not listed as a reliever for Northeast Ohio. The FAA really doesn't have any threshold for that. It's kind of at the administration's. They kind of decide how. Now, so the relievers in the area are Cuyahoga County, Lorain County, and Medina, I believe, is a reliever.
Thank you. And
maybe just to get to, as far as I know, we did not do any advocacy for that change of designation.
Well, and final question on this point: have we engaged with the FAA on that? Like, I guess there's a universe where it could have been a clerical error. Do we know how they came to that decision, or is this just something we sort of stumbled upon as we were getting all of our pieces together for today?
We have not had conversations with the FAA yet, but we plan to meet with the FAA later this month, and we'll ask them about it when we meet then.
Thank you. Moving over to the information about the lease terms. So understanding that the signature lease is the outlier for being a longer duration, the others are 1 to 2 year terms. Are you able to provide information on the renewal options that are associated with that and what the cost would be to, so one of my concerns has been, and I kind of said this at the top of the meeting, is if we were to be overly ambitious and close the airport in a timeline that was overly ambitious, that I'm repeating myself, you could end up in a situation where we're having to buy out lease terms. But I suppose the same thing could be said about lease term renewals. And how long do lease term renewals kick us into the future?
So thank you for the question, Chair. The renewals are on an annual basis, and they're at our option. So if we can renewal out to 29, it would be each year we would renewal out to 29. And then if we want to go beyond 29, it would be a new contract after that point.
Okay. And so with additional legislative authority
That's
to renew
correct.
beyond 29.
And maybe I'll just add, as it relates to signature, we've had in-depth conversations with them similarly about their operations. They are putting together an impact report of kind of what it would look like, similar to Cleveland Clinic, of what they would want to see if Burke was to close. And they are very interested in moving their operations to Cleveland Hopkins.
Okay. So, and again, a larger concern of all of this has been really option number one being the most problematic, in my opinion, because it would create a scenario where we have to operate an airport for a duration of time, 13, let's say 15 years, just as a good round number, with the understanding that we would no longer be accepting federal and state dollars to help maintain the facility through that duration of time. Is it fair to say that the option one is it's the no payback option? What we don't know is that we're not looking at the cost of operations. Option two would cost 7.1, but even the congressional option 3 would still cost us approximately $1.4 million because we would still be on the hook for the ODOT dollars.
Yeah, to the councilman, that is, I think, the most likely scenario. If the congressional legislation took effect the moment that it was passed, those state and federal grant obligations diminish over time. And so, if we were to close get the authorization to close the airport, it would depend on when that authorization came. But 1.7 is a good kind of round estimate for that state grant.
Sure. So, and to put it differently, the administration's hope, clarify this, the administration's hope is that Congress would pass a law to close the airport that would include, for lack of better terms, the forgiveness of, let's say, $5.7 million of federal grant obligations. The legislation, though, would not have the ability to waive the $1,386,100 of state grant dollars.
That's correct.
Okay.
But if I may add, Chair, if we have that ask of the federal government, we would probably have that same ask of the state as well, with our state legislators to see if they would forgive those loans as well.
Understandable. I will forego taking a dig at the state like I normally would. My final question, and then I'll kick it over to Councilman Jones, Casey, and Polensek I have so far. Understanding that the administration's desired path towards closure would be the congressional approval, which would not require this net benefit to aviation analysis. I'm curious to what degree is the administration considering the FAA process as kind of a secondary option, and in that regard, what is the stated net benefit to aviation? It seems, I think a layperson would say, well, more is always going to be better, so how is something going to improve by diminishing? So could you speak to the administration's stance on what that net benefit to aviation would be for Northeast Ohio?
Yeah, to the chair, we are, I would say, kind of looking at a parallel path of both the FAA process and pursuing an act of Congress. The airport layout plan that we talked about at the very top of this is sort of one important step in kind of laying all of the groundwork for that FAA process. For the net benefit to aviation, there are, I would say, the main net benefit to aviation is the safety of Hopkins and making sure that that all of our sort of air traffic is concentrated in one portion of the city as opposed to two areas of the city right now, is one of the things that have been flagged. But as we go through the process, we would continue to identify additional net benefits to aviation. And I will say one of the reasons that we're interested in the congressional path is because, I mean, the FAA is just not in the business of closing airports. They are in the business of opening airports and keeping airports open. And so proving this net benefit to aviation is likely going to be a bit of a moving target from the FAA. And as we've talked about before, and as we'll continue to talk about in future meetings, you know, when we think about the future of Burke, we're really thinking about the opportunity cost to our residents of not being able to access that land. We're talking about, you know, equity and economic impact. That's not part of the calculation that FAA takes into account when they're looking at this net benefit to aviation, which is part of why we think an act of Congress is the more appropriate route for this particular airport.
Okay, thank you. And one final question. When you speak about, to your point of air traffic being concentrated in two areas of the city, are you speaking essentially to overlapping flight paths as the concern?
Correct.
Is that a concern today?
It is something that my understanding is that our port has to manage and that air traffic controllers have to manage, and I think air traffic controllers would rather focus on one airport instead of two.
Okay. I will turn it over to Councilman Jones. We'll do 10 minutes each. I have Jones, Casey, Polensik. Is there anyone else? All right, gotcha. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We just, and this is on the same line that you and the administration has been laying out in terms of the airport and its usage. And it seems like the FAA has said that it is not a airport where we would have traffic coming from, and I just want to get clarification from this Hopkins Airport.
So it is not a designated reliever, meaning if like Hopkins was particularly busy and they needed to, you know, do some sort of overflow, it is not designated as an overflow site. Not to say that they would never route traffic there, but it's not one of the FAA designated overflows.
So how many times have we used it, do we know, as an overflow?
I don't know, but I can find out.
Right. I mean, is this something that, you know, and when you're looking into that, you know, I would be interested in knowing how many times Hopkins had to come to the Burke to use it as an overflow. The second thing that I would ask is how many flights are operated out of that airport?
On average, right now, there's about 40,000 operations. So that includes helicopter, that includes anytime somebody lifts off for flight training, about 40,000 operations. That number has gone down over the years, and the FAA, they predict that it will continue to go down through 2050.
Right. So when Burke was at its peak, what was the flow of traffic? To give me a better idea.
I don't.
And then how do we compare that with other? Is there another airport similar to Burke that we can compare the traffic to?
I can find out what the sort of peak operations was at Burke. I don't have it off the top of my head. And as for comparing airports, it is really challenging to find an exact comp for Burke. At our last meeting, when we talked about the budget, Director Francis talked about a couple different lakefront airports that are somewhat comparable, but every airport has its own different economic market, has different amenities, has different, you know, operations, and so we could compare maybe like I could probably find another airport with 40,000 operations, but I'm not able to say like, oh, this is an exact comp over here.
So are we subsidizing Burke Airport?
Burke Airport is operating at a $1.7 million loss that is being subsidized by Cleveland Hopkins. So it's not subsidized out of the general revenue fund, but it is subsidized by
But it is being
the airport.
subsidized.
Correct.
So how long has it been subsidized?
It has been, I don't remember exactly how long, for a long time, for
Right.
decades at
So
this point.
I guess the question I would ask is, the tenants are there, so I guess we don't have enough tenants and we don't have enough flights that's coming out of there where we have to continue to subsidize it at 1.7 million. Have we done a total of how much this cost us to subsidize this airport?
I don't have a total number of how much the city has, or how much the port control has subsidized the airport.
Can we find out?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would like to know, how many years we've had to subsidize it and how much that cost is. And then, do you have a list of the tenants?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, we have a list of tenants that's already been provided to council. We are almost 90% occupancy, and
Can
we
you
charge fair
resend it to
market
me?
rate. Yes.
I appreciate that.
course.
And then, Mr. Chairman, the next question that I would have is, and this is an important one because the administration is making the move to close the airport down. So my concern is what is the vision what's going to come forth there? I've shared some of my concepts over the years. Cleveland needs to have a really nice strip that's going to be really nice, and we need to talk about how that's going to have a huge economic benefit with jobs, and I would not be supporting anything less than. And anything, and when we talk about that, I know we've had conversations at the table here about how we look at the other parcels of land so that we can create a real, true economic bonanza in the city of Cleveland on that operation site. And those are some of my concerns and some of the citizens' concerns, because right now we've had an increase in our property taxes, and part of that was because of that TIF down here. And that's what was told to me. So I'm hoping that, Mr. Chairman, that we can do something here that can really, truly benefit the city of Cleveland. And I don't know, I want to leave that open to the director to explain a little bit about what's being proposed.
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, we have a meeting set on April 15th, so in 2 weeks, where the entire meeting is going to be dedicated to just talking about concept plans for Burke and what Burke could be redeveloped into. So I think I'm going to ask you to hold tight for April 15th. We have also sent multiple economic impact studies to City Council. One is pretty broad and kind of shows a range of economic impact for redevelopment, and then one is more specific. That's the more recent one that we sent over last week that talks about the economic impact of relatively low density uses, even just focused on recreation. I will say high level, Burke Lakefront Airport contributes around $500,000 in property or in taxes to the city. So we benefit as a city around $500,000 in general revenue fund. Even a really low density use on the site would give us 5 times more direct tax revenue to the city of Cleveland. But we'll talk about that on April 15th.
And then, Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, the tenants list, can you also include not only who the tenants are, but how much square footage space they have in addition to what they're paying for their lease?
Yes.
Appreciate it. No other further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have Casey, Polensik, Bishop, Davis, Hudson, Harsh, and Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the chief. Great. So, and just so that we're clear, nobody has, even the administration or the FAA, have not concluded what a net benefit to aviation is yet, correct?
That's correct. A net benefit to aviation is really a negotiation between an airport sponsor
so-
and the FAA.
So we have not come to that
Correct.
conclusion yet. Okay. And then how many takeoff and landings did Burke perform in 2025?
Around 40,000.
40,000?
Operations, yeah. That's like takeoff landings of anything.
Okay. Has, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, has the administration officially asked Congress for a closure of Burke Airport?
So in late last year, in October of last year, the mayor and county executive Ronine sent a letter to our federal delegation requesting that they propose legislation for a closure of Burke. That was October of last year.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, I forget, Mark, this report that the FAA put out that said that Hopkins is no longer a reliever airport,
Burke is no longer.
or I'm sorry, Burke is no longer a reliever airport. I knew that. Can you send that report to us? Can we get a
Yes.
copy of that? Can we get a copy of that report? Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, when was the last time the Bibb administration applied for a grant for Burke?
I would have to get that information for you,
Okay.
Councilman.
According,
Yeah, we haven't.
never, correct? The last time a grant was issued for Burke was 2020, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we have not, the administration, the current administration has never requested any type of outside grant funding for the improvement, upgrade, safety of Burke, correct?
Yeah, for Chief Tuin, that's correct.
Right, which leads us to believe that this has been part of the administration's vision since before the mayor was even elected, correct?
I think yeah, you can come to that conclusion, that's fair.
Okay, all right. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, you guys bring us options to release or to renew all the time, right? And they're always, and even Chief, we've had this discussion a number of times about long-term lease options. How come all of the options at Burke are only a 1 or 2 year option to renew? Whoever.
Yeah, and hopefully Chief Tuin can add. My understanding is that's been a common practice at Burke is for us to do 1 or 2 year leases with 1 or 2 year options to renew. That's a longstanding pattern and practice at.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, has anybody ever come and said, hey, we'd like a longer-term lease or we'd like to invest in Burke?
Signature Aviation is one example, and they've made an investment into Burke, and so that's one example where that has happened and that we've allowed them to have a longer-term lease. That's the only one that's that I know about.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to Chief Tijuan, or I think it was you that said, let me find it here again. Maybe it was one of the chiefs. When you were talking about, Mr. Chairman, to the chiefs, a reliever airport, right? That if something happened at Hopkins, now that this reliever airport or designation has been taken to off of Burke and put on Medina and Lost Nation and all that other stuff, that the FAA would use those airports as opposed to Burke. Mr. Chairman, to the chiefs and to Mark, do you really think that I would believe that if United needed to land to land a plane, that they would look around and, first of all, they're probably, if it's an emergency, they're probably going to Detroit or Columbus or something like that. But since we're really focusing on Burke no longer being a reliever airport, do you really think that they would land a plane in Medina or at Lost Nation as opposed to Burke? I mean, because that was the impression that we were left with.
Yeah, the true nature of the reliever status is to relieve airports like Hopkins from the GA traffic. So not necessarily thinking in a way of, an Airbus is coming to Hopkins and has to land at another airport. You're right, they're going to get diverted to another commercial service airport. It's the reliever airports are set in a way to keep the GA traffic away from commercial service. So that's really the reliever definition.
And I might add, Cuyahoga County is also on that list of reliever airports.
I get it.
So
I'm
that's
just,
another-
yeah, I'm just saying, but I can see, I can see the administration's next 2 weeks is the headlines in the news is going to be that Burke is no longer needed because it's no longer a reliever airport, and we don't know, it's a headline, right? To me, because now it's just another reason, and look, we don't agree on the whole thing, but that's why we're talking through this, right? And that's going to make it sound like they're taking Airbuses and dropping them off at Lost Nation or Cuyahoga County or Medina or wherever, and I don't believe that that's actually true, right?
Right.
What the real narrative of that would be. I'm going to stay under my time. So as a Cleveland City Councilman, right? And there's a difference between being a Cleveland City Council person and a county council person. For me, it is perturbing that we have an administration that keeps saying that we can take all of this stuff and take it out of all these flights and stuff like that and take them out of the city of Cleveland. Our job is to bring as much as we can to the city of Cleveland, right? So to hear an administration say, oh, it's okay, we have 40,000 flights, but we can send them to another city, no matter where it is, right? That doesn't sit well with at least myself, because my whole job is to bring as much as we can to the city of Cleveland. And under this current administration, we already have, we've in the process of losing our Cleveland Browns, right, to another city. And we all had to agree, because of a deal that the administration cut, and we had to agree to it, to let them go as well. And now we're sitting here and we're listening to an administration tell us, well, it's okay to take 40,000 flights. Now, those 40,000 flights have to mean something. And whether people want to say that that's an airport for millionaires and billionaires, it's not like they're coming in, flying, and having McDonald's on 65th in Detroit and leaving. Just last week, I had a developer who's going to invest $30 million into my ward. The only reason he's doing it is because of the convenience of Burke, where he flew in, had our meeting, and he flew out. But he's leaving $30 million in the city. And during that meeting, he said, if it wasn't for Burke and the convenience of Burke, we would not be investing in the city of Cleveland. That's the personal stuff that I've had to deal with Burke. Now, a grand vision, or if we're able to make more for a city, later on down the road, that's fine, but I would be remiss if I wasn't, here to advocate for what I hear from my residents, from the people that I represent. And it is disturbing to know that, if Sherwin-Williams wanted to leave, right, would the administration be saying, hey, it's okay, let's go put him over in Medina County, or any business? It's disturbing knowing that we have an administration that wants to take things from the city of Cleveland and it be okay to just leave the city of Cleveland. My opinion, that's what I'm here for, to give, and I only have one vote in this, but I appreciate the information. And if we could get the report that said that we're no longer a reliever airport, for whatever that may mean, just like whatever a net benefit to aviation is going to mean. I think it's all in the eye of the beholder for whoever has to make the decision, probably somewhere in Washington.
And if you don't mind, Chair, I'd love to just respond to a couple things. One, I would love connected to that business owner that you mentioned, because that's not a point of view that I get to hear often. And as we are also gathering information, it would be really helpful to
I'll
hear from that
definitely put
business
you in
owner.
contact.
Thank you. I also want to clarify that the vast majority of those 4,000 operations that are happening at Burke,
40?
thank you, 40,000, would be happening at Hopkins. The really exception is flight school. It would be really challenging to do at Cleveland Hopkins. That is probably a better fit for a smaller, more regional airport like the county or Lost Nation. But I very much share your interest in wanting to attract as much opportunity to the boundaries of the city of Cleveland. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that as everything that can go to Hopkins, we would keep at Hopkins.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I will say, and this is a 4-part series that could probably easily turn into a 900-part series, right? So I've been trying to keep it efficient, right? But one of my questions and thoughts has been, and I think it's worthwhile. It's a worthwhile discussion, maybe not at this exact moment. Is in a world where Burke is closing and different aspects of what are currently there are going places that are not Hopkins. You know, are there conversations actively with those like the county or operators of other airports and maybe even some sort of revenue sharing model as we are feeding them business and trying to understand that we're not just, you know, we're not just giving away our own revenue resources to others, because I am of the opinion that many expect us to think regionally, but they don't think regionally when it comes to us. And I want to make sure that we're not just in the business of being the minor leagues for the rest of the region. But we can discuss that at a later point. Next on the list is Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and I will say I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to all my colleagues that are here. This is one of the most important decisions this body, this legislative body, will address in this upcoming term and possibly beyond. So this is a serious discussion. Again, I want to thank you and all the members for your due diligence. Let me jump right into the gentleman who's sitting to the right of Ms. Trevisan. What's your name again, sir?
Mark Heckroth,
Mark, and how do you spell last name?
Heckroth.
Okay. Let me just jump into the elephant in the room, because we keep hearing about subsidies. Burke Airport. We subsidize the Cleveland Brown Stadium $11 million a year. We subsidize the street fund $23 million a year. We subsidize CMSD school fund $1.25 million a year. We subsidize the cemetery $687,000 a year. We subsidize the golf course this year alone with general fund $909,000, not counting the $1.1 million that the administration wants for capital repairs. So for $2 million this year. We subsidize public auditorium, $3.4 million. We subsidize the West Side Market, $783,000. This is on top of the $20 million that we put into the West Side Market. So let's quit jerking around with the subsidy stuff. It's all smoke and mirrors. Let's get down to the brass tacks, and that is, should Burke Airport remain or should it not remain? In my time here, my entire time here, there's been a discussion about Burke Airport. Should it go or should it stay? Not since the White administration, and I want to say that again, not since Mayor White's administration has anyone, previous administration, made any concerted effort to make Burke work. When you look at what has transpired there over the years, it's been lack of investment, lack of commitment, nobody out there hustling business. I don't even believe, and I'll through the chair to whoever, do we have a commissioner of Burke Airport anymore? Can somebody answer that question?
Yeah, we have a commissioner of airports, which is also the director of the airport, Brian Francis.
Okay, but you realize, to my colleagues, Burke had a commissioner, a standalone commissioner one time, had a staff who was there hustling business. There were 100,000 flights out of Burke in 2000. 100,000 flights out of Burke Airport. Because you know why? Under the White administration, they hustled business. They sought business. They thought general aviation aircraft business for Burke Airport. And that has all gone downhill. So the real question before my honorable colleagues in this body, and this committee is going to play a very important role. The mayor went out on his own and asked that Burke be decommissioned without any vote of this legislative body. Without any of us taking a vote here. He went on his own. We're going to close Burke Airport. And do what with it? A golf course and ball fields. The only thing missing is a petting zoo and a putt-putt. Okay? That's what's missing. And maybe a big slip and slide. I have always believed that Burke could work. But you know what? I'm going to say this to the administration. I'm willing to listen to any reasonable proposal that comes in that would generate jobs and revenue for our city, job creation, real development that would benefit. There is nothing proposed in the two schematics that I have seen. In fact, I've gone to some of my neighborhood meetings. People are laughing at this stuff. They're laughing. And then I'm getting calls from vets. Wait a minute, Councilman, where's the COD going? On both of your plants here, the COD is gone. Where are you going to sink the COD? Where are you going to put the COD at? You have no plan for the COD, which is greatly supported by our veterans here. When the chairman, in passing down a hallway, mentioned to me about the golf course, I thought he was just busting my chops, to use a street term. And then when I realized that we're going to take out Burke and put a golf course and green space and more bike paths, you know, and I have to say this, the mayor has to quit listening to the millennials who want to ride bikes and hate cars, okay? He needs to step back and start thinking about the development, and this is what my concern is here. We're on the losing end. We're losing the jail, Mr. Chairman and my honorable colleagues. 700 plus jobs are leaving. A big impact downtown. We're losing the Browns and the stadium, gone, and then giving Jimmy the demolition rights, which is mind-boggling to me. We lost the Greyhound bus station. You lost the hotel here on Lakeside Avenue. You got Reserve Square in foreclosure. A bunch of other businesses that are hanging by a thread downtown are in possible foreclosure. We're losing 18 schools. And now we've got Burke Airport to contend with. We cannot continue to lose. I'm tired of losing. I don't like to lose. I like to win. So I want to see a proposal coming from the administration about Burke Airport. It's going to win for our taxpayers and our citizens. That's what I want to see. And I don't see that. And I'm like, and then I've had people from the aviation community call me and say, Councilman Polensek, do you realize now with the two renderings that what they know, which they never wanted to admit publicly, they can't build anything of substance there because it's landfill and because the 10-foot table, water table. They really can't build anything of substance there. And this is an admission to that. So now it's going to be green space and again, maybe a petting zoo at some point, and a slip and slide and whatever else. I want jobs. I want jobs for my citizens. I want to see, Mr. Chairman, how this is going to impact the east side of the city. That's what I want to see. And that's what I heard from my neighborhood residents at some of my neighborhood meetings recently. Council, are they serious? So I want to make it clear, this is not the council's decision. Council did not come up with the golf course. That we can't even run a golf course now. We cannot operate a golf course now. It's an embarrassment. And we're going to put a golf course on this critical property. So this is what I'm going to ask, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to see, in the past, there were all kind of proposals for Burke, especially what we call the handle of the cleaver in the day. What was going to take place? I'm sure there's some artist drawings and renderings around here about Burke Airport. This is all the thing I would suggest, that this committee invite some of the previous commissioners who operated Burke. Hear what they have to say. Invite some of the employees, hear what they have to say about how the city has made no effort to make Burke Airport a winner and make it work. We have a runway in your own diagram. We have a longer runway than County, than Lorraine, than Lost Nation. And I'm going to propose to Mark, what are the condition of the runways at Burke? Have you actually looked at condition of the runways at Burke?
I believe the inboard was rehabilitated through that ODOT grant in 2019. I can't speak for the the outboard runway when that
So
last
you
was
couldn't tell us
rehabbed.
what your opinion would be of the condition of the runways at Burke?
No, I mean, ODOT puts out a pavement condition index map that we could reference, the latest one to
Okay.
that. But no, as part of this study, we did not go out on the runway and do
Okay.
any type of analysis.
I'd like to know, Mr. Chairman, if there is any study as it pertains to the condition of the runways, what, if there's a rating system, the condition of the runways, the condition of the terminal, of actual facilities out there. But this committee and this council, we have our due diligence to do. I know the mayor is obsessed with the lakefront. He's obsessed with it. But what's going to happen to Browns, the site where the Browns are at? Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking to the west of the Mather on the lakefront. What's going to happen there? And I see no plan for that. But now we're going to knock out Burke. It's like we're putting the cart before the horse. You want to develop the lakefront, start where we can do it right now. To the west of the Mather, you could develop the lakefront right now as we're sitting here, and I see no effort to do that. I see no effort, no discussion about what's going to go in the hole in the ground where the Cleveland Browns Stadium presently is. But we're going to knock out Burke Airport and make no effort to make it work. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of seeing a city take the back. We're constantly in the back seat here. Bad decisions. It's 2026. We cannot afford to make bad decisions going forward. The losing the Browns was going to go down as one of the worst decisions made in this city's history. I will write today's date and time down. One of the worst decisions ever made to lose the Cleveland Browns downtown. And no effort made to really keep them here. Same thing with the state, with the jail. No effort, no fight to keep the jail in downtown Cleveland. No effort at all. And then we wonder why we have poverty, despair, and lack of opportunity. So, Mr. Chairman, this to me is, if the administration comes to us and say, City Council, we're going to create an economic engine on the lakefront. We're going to ask you to vote to do away with Burke, but we're going to create an economic engine down there that creates jobs and opportunities and has a domino effect on the rest of the city. You know what? Then Mike Polensic's willing to listen to that. But I don't see that. And this, if I was you, I would have been embarrassed to float this crap. Golf courses, bike paths. Give me a freaking break. Really? It's embarrassing. I'll rest my case, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to anything, Chief?
Maybe just a couple things to the councilman through the chair. One, I'm really grateful to hear the excitement over the 50 acres of lakefront to the west of the Mather. You, I think, are familiar with Scott Skinner from Northwest Waterfront Development Corporation. They just brought on a master planner for that site. We start construction in 2027 on the land bridge to better connect that site and anticipate that we're going to be able to work on both public infrastructure and vertical development of that 50 acres, within the next 5 years. And so as those concepts continue to develop, they'll be brought back to council. But there is ongoing conversations around that 50 acres of lakefront redevelopment where Huntington Bank Stadium currently sits. We will talk in a lot more depth in 2 weeks about the concept study. And just to maybe clarify for council, the images that were put forward are conceptual. They are a fit study to get a sense of what could be placed on the lakefront as low density development that would require very minimal public dollars to subsidize that development, that have more of an economic impact than what we currently get with Burke Lakefront, and that allow for significantly more public access. This is not a master plan for Burke. The image that you've seen, it is intended to show what even a very relatively low cost, low development scenario could do for the residents of Cleveland. And when we look at that kind of range of what redevelopment could be on the kind of low cost, low end of things, there is still significant economic impact to the city of Cleveland compared to what Burke is today. So we will talk all about that in the coming 2 weeks, but wanted to make sure that folks understand the context of what that fit study is.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And Councilman Polensek, I hear you on the suggestion of bringing in others into this conversation, whether it's former commissioners of Burke or users. I've held off on trying to fit that into the 4 hearings that we announced in January, just because I was worried that it would become overwhelming. But again, there is no official decision before this body. This is all exploratory at this point, so I think that it's something we can work in. And I'll say I am very eager to get the presentation in 2 weeks and understand this fit analysis and what the administration feels can be accomplished and what the benefits of it would be. And to the degree that, many in the community I guess might have found what's been released as maybe underwhelming. One of my frustrations to date has been people's ideas about what can be accomplished at Burke, I think, are as practical as building roller coasters on the moon sometimes. And the Plain Dealer, the editors of the Plain Dealer seem to think that you can build a tower so that you can see Canada. If we built something to see Canada, it would be the tallest building in the United States of America, because apparently we don't know how to do Google search to how high you need to be to see 60 miles. But I use it as an example just to say that people have all these ideas that don't comport with reality. And I think what we need to come to ultimately is a decision between, it's a binary choice between 2 realities: an airport or what can be accomplished other than an airport, which is could certainly be something but wouldn't be everything. I suspect we'll come to that decision at some point in the future, but what I don't want to do is I guess I'll close by saying, to the degree that maybe people found what was released to be underwhelming, that's the word I'm using, I at least appreciate the honesty of saying this is what could fit within this property given all of the externalities that we've talked about through this series of hearings. Councilman Polensek, go ahead, and then
Here's the challenge, and I commend you the way you've handled this whole process. But here's the reality. As you're sitting here in this committee, and my honorable colleagues are doing your due diligence and asking some significant questions, we have lobbyists in Washington lobbying to kill Burke Airport. So you're doing what is right. And then I'm also told that that Jimmy Haslam's in Washington lobbying to kill Burke Airport. So I'm concerned about that we see 2 paths, 2 courses of action, and that I want to make sure that there are not people undercutting the legislative body. I want to make that very clear, because at that point, it's going to get interesting here at this table. I can tell you that right now. I take my job very seriously, and I will do everything I can to protect this body and this institution. Don't underestimate what this legislative body can do and can't do. You cut our legs out, or attempt to cut our legs out in Washington, you're going to be in for a swell time at this table. I'm going to tell you that right now. I predict to you there's going to be a swell time at this table. We have to work as a team. We have to work together. We have to respect each other. As I said, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to listen. I'm disappointed as to what has transpired here, but I hope the message goes loud and clear to the mayor. You can try to kill Burke on a national level, but you still got to get a vote out of Cleveland City Council. Remember that. You still got to get a vote out of Cleveland City Council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'm going to express my appreciation for my colleagues and their perspective. First, I want to get some context. I'm not sure if I'm the only one in the room that what is COD? Now, what is COD? Can somebody tell me what that is?
The submarine.
Oh, it's a submarine, and I will also maybe clarify that it was an oversight not to include it on those images. The USS Cod is a gem for the city of Cleveland, and it
So you
should
didn't
stay
sink
there.
the cod, is that what you're telling me?
We're not sinking the
Okay.
Cod. No,
Glad.
that's correct. On record.
Okay, so
Not
it's right
sinking the
there.
Cod.
It's down around Lakefront. Okay. So the grant obligations here that you gave us, the figures and the grant obligations, is that an up-to-date figure?
That is.
So I see the last fiscal year was 2020. So is that, can you explain that?
Yeah, so, and I might ask our colleagues from CHA to add, but that indicates the year that the grant was accepted, and the way that these federal grants work is sort of every year that goes by, the remaining obligation under that grant goes down. So as long as we've placed those items in service, over time, those grant obligations are essentially forgiven and they're amortized over time.
So are these the figures that the city would have to pay back on grant obligations if we don't get this act of Congress to give us the okay to close Burke Airport? Is that what I'm understanding?
This is a current accounting of the outstanding grant balances, and so if we were to go through the FAA process, or if Congress did not forgive our federal grant obligations, then yes, and if it happened today, then 5.7 million is, I think, the number for the federal, and then it's just over 1 for state requirements. So yes, that's what would have to get repaid under a certain set of facts if we were to close Burke.
So if the Congress gives the green light to close Burke Airport, we wouldn't have to come up with these figures.
If they gave the green light to close Burke, they could also choose to forgive the $5.7 million that's remaining. I don't know if they would, but they could. And then we would also be able to ask the state for forgiveness of those additional grants. But yes, there could be $7 million in what is currently owed today that could have to be repaid back. That's part of the sort of weighing that we would do depending on the timing and what we would want for a closure.
So my next question is, and this goes to you, Mr. Chairman. When are we expected to pass a decision on this closure of Burke Airport? Or when are we going to have a vote on this? Is it going to be before we get all of this information? Because what I'm hearing is that it's a lot of unknowns, and that we have to rely on Congress, and before we figure out, well, we're going to have to pay this back, we're going to have to pay that back. So when are we going to have to vote on this, and will we have all this information up front?
It's a difficult question to answer specifically. No legislation has been introduced. I would presume that legislation would be introduced by departmental request for such a closure. I will say I'm not interested in entertaining any legislation to close Burke Airport before this committee, before a decision were made by the federal government. I think that would be jumping the gun. So I think the unknown is the what's happening in Washington and the success of that. But ultimately, if something were determined by Congress or the FAA, the next step would be Cleveland City Council.
Okay. So regardless of what happened in Washington, basically the ultimate decision is going to lie with this body. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the committee assembled here today. I'm not my usual perky self. My family hasn't had power overnight. Neither have about 1,000 of my residents in Tremont. So more of a private entity problem than a Cleveland Public Power problem. So
Thank you.
but
Thank you for
still,
clarifying.
just wanted to clarify that. Still very tired. Still very cold. Still very hungry. My first question is related to the 3 options for the closure paths. If we were to pay the $7.7 million or so back to the feds in the state, does that bring us from an option 1? Well, does that, I mean, if we just pay back the grant obligations instead of waiting for them to expire, can we close Burke Airport tomorrow?
Could you repeat?
Yeah, it was a confusing question. Let me rephrase that. We owe, or we have received $7 and some million worth of grants. If we repaid them all tomorrow, could we just close Burke tomorrow?
Yeah, we would have to prove like the closures and net benefit to aviation. Pay the money back and then send the letter to
Through the chair, if we wait for them to expire, we don't have to demonstrate a net benefit to aviation. But if we just pay them back earlier, we do have to demonstrate a net benefit to aviation.
Yes.
And this is a federal law that requires
yeah, that's
that
all outlined in
arbitrariness.
that FA order 5190, yeah.
Are you all familiar, through the chair, that we're sending the first woman to the moon today? I think it's pretty exciting, and so I'm really glad to hear that you have the Artemis 2 mission, a great deal of which was designed by our local NASA facilities. The idea that there's a home still contemplated for the Women's Air and Space Museum is essential, and I'm very glad to hear that you've thought about it. I'll just add, right now it's free to get into, and I'd love to make sure that it'll be still free for the public in the future, at least for Cleveland residents. But can't bear repeating, we're sending a woman to the moon today. Like, what are we talking about today? That's the real news. What else we got? Thank you for clarifying the reliever situation. I'm glad it was a surprise to you, certainly a surprise to me. Learned it all right now. Last thing I'll say is putt-putt's a great idea. I just really want to put it out there. My family's talked about putt-putt on Burke for some time. We don't golf. We can't afford golf. But we're putt-putt people. And I can't afford to fly out of Burke, and no one I know can either. It doesn't provide any economic benefit to the city. Doesn't help a single traveler. It provides, I see Councilman Casey came back. I would love to meet the developer who thinks only through flying through private airports can we invest in the neighborhoods here. That's not my experience in my neighborhood. So, putt-putt. Sign me up. Thanks, all.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Councilwoman Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Assistant Chief, of the 40,000 flights or landing of the activity at Burke, I know obviously it's not a commercial airport. What do those activities consist of? Are they business flights? Are they exclusively private flights? Who is flying in and out of Burke?
Yeah, to the councilwoman through the chair, a lot of those flights are medical transport flights, so either dropping off organs or shuttling organs to and from Burke. Many are private, people who have their private planes, who then kind of do their hobbyist planes flying from Burke. We have some limited, private flights through charters with something like Signature, and then also flight school. So that's kind of the summary of the operations of those 40,000 operations at Burke.
Okay, thank you. And so there are also private flights that go in and out of Hopkins, correct?
That's right. Some of our big corporate partners, such as Sherwin-Williams and KeyBank, actually prefer Hopkins for their corporate location because it is, Burke can get pretty icy. And so we have, in fact, a decent amount of corporate and private flights that go out of Hopkins.
Okay. Do you know the percentage, through the chair, do you know the percentage of private flights operating out of Burke, and then conversely the percentage operating out of Hopkins?
I don't have that with me, but I can provide that.
Thank you. And regarding Signature, I did a quick Google search, and they're the largest network of fixed-based operators providing ground services for private and business aviations. Do they prefer to operate out of Burke, or would they prefer to move to Hopkins?
We are in ongoing conversations with them about their impact of their operations if Burke was to close. They have a lot of operational benefits of operating out of Burke, and they also can see their operations transitioning to Hopkins. So I don't want to answer fully for them, but they understand that Burke might close and have been really active participants in a conversation with us about moving to Hopkins.
Okay, and through the chair, with the unfortunate construction of the new Brown Stadium in proximity to Hopkins Airport, have any discussions come up about the traffic concerns that might come up with that airport?
In reference to vehicle or aviation traffic?
Things like medical transport coming in and out of the airport, and issues that really aren't a concern right now operating out of Burke.
Yeah, we've been having ongoing discussions about the traffic analysis in and around Hopkins in regard to the stadium being built there, and we're looking at how efficiencies of our traffic in and around the airport, whether it's getting to the hangars or like the park and rides and whatnot. the efficiencies of getting to the airport during an event day. So we're in continuous conversations. We have our own traffic analysis consultant that we're working with in conjunction with the Brown's consultant that's doing the traffic analysis.
Great, thank you. Has that been brought up as a concern by the medical flights that would be moving to Hopkins if they couldn't operate out of Burke?
To the councilwoman through the chair, that we've talked with the medical operators about various ways for them to go from Hopkins then to the medical facilities, either with an ambulance or in a helicopter. One of the nice things about the location of Burke is its proximity to our healthcare providers. On the ground would be maybe, a 10-minute difference from Hopkins as opposed to what Burke is, and would be going the opposite direction of what a lot of that traffic would tend to be. So that's part of the impact that we're talking about with the Cleveland Clinic and the other operators there that do medical transport.
Would that be part of the analysis through the chair that the FAA would use in the benefit analysis?
My understanding is that they really truly only look at aviation. They don't look at operational, anything beyond the net benefit to aviation in and of itself.
Okay, including medical flights.
They would maybe look at like where medical flights, how it would come in with air traffic, but not getting the organ from the airport to the hospital. So like when we talk about a net benefit to aviation, it is truly blinders on aviation, not any other operational impacts beyond that.
Okay, thank you. And there was a story in the news recently this week through the chair about the air show, and that the air show said that if Burke were to close, that they would leave, and that was like full stop. If Burke closed, they would leave. Is that still? Do you see that to be the case?
To the councilwoman through the chair, we're planning to talk more about the air show at our April 15th meeting. I will say, and have said in every public setting that I can, we want to have conversations with the air show. We reach out to the air show 3 times a week to try to talk to them about how to transition their operations if Burke was to close, to either still have an air portion of the show and some ground operations, to figure out what in the kind of conceptual fit studies we would need to change to accommodate their operations, to get a better sense of what it would take to support their operations. The air show has not been willing to engage in those conversations with the administration, but we feel really confident that there's a solution that could work to keep the air show here.
And through the chair, is the air show a priority of the mayor?
Yeah, so when we think about closure of Burke, we think about economic impact, public access, and then what we can build at Burke that is privately financeable, that doesn't kind of require a lot of operations for the city. We know that the air show is a really important event that happens in the city of Cleveland, and so I don't want to say it's like the number one, that is the thing that would make the decision about Burke. There's a lot of different factors that we're weighing, but it's certainly a really important decision-making point, and we're really eager to talk to the air show about how to maintain those operations
So
in the
just
city
to
of Cleveland.
clarify on that, would the mayor sacrifice the air show in order to close Burke?
I have not had that direct conversation with the mayor, so I don't want to answer on his behalf, but I would say that if it is in the best interest of the city, the citizens of the city to close Burke, we don't think we're going to have to sacrifice the air show. We think that we can keep the air show here.
Okay, thank you. And then my final question, why would Jimmy Haslam be lobbying in Washington to close Burke Airport?
We talked about this a little bit during the Brown settlement, and one of the terms of the settlement was an agreement for the city and the Haslam Sports Group to have a stronger partnership, and one of the things that was specifically called out in that agreement included supporting the city's efforts to close Burke Lakefront Airport. And so I think that is kind of where the foundation of that, I think, question comes, is that part of the partnership includes supporting the closure of Burke.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hudson, and I will say I've been getting a number of emails from supporters of the air show, and what I have to admit I do find to be a rather annoying advocacy tool when you get 400 emails a minute. It makes it difficult to even kind of keep your head above water about the other stuff. But I will say I'm also a supporter of the air show. It's been going to the air show nearly every year since I was a child. However, I also do recognize that many air shows operate without it being directly at an airport. Planes take off somewhere, they come and they do displays, and I think I'm not picking a side in this as much as I'm saying that the conclusion that the air show could not take place if there were not a runway here, I think is an over-exaggeration. And I think that it would be useful for hopefully the administration and the air show at some point to engage so we can really understand that more fully instead of just getting ourselves into camps, which is, I think, how a lot of the larger conversation about Burke has evolved over the years, personal opinion. Councilwoman Gray and then, Councilman Harsh and then Gray and then Casey wanted back on the list.
Okay. Thank you. Just picking up where Councilwoman Hudson left off, what, through the chair, would the Haslam Sports Group's financial interest in closing down Burke be?
They
Why
have
would
no
they care?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, they have no financial interest in
So
closing Burke.
through the chair, they're just doing this as a favor to the mayor?
As part of the partnership with the mayor, yeah.
Through the chair, I don't really see them doing much that isn't in their financial interest, so I'm really curious what their interest is. Through the chair, the Federal Aviation Administration, do they have a local office? Is there a person in Cleveland that works for the FAA and has a desk somewhere in Cuyahoga County?
There's a region, so the councilman through the chair, there's a regional office, and that's who, like, yeah, in Detroit.
In Detroit. Through the chair, have we reached out to them at all? I'm curious, like, if they need a place at this table and, what their feedback would be.
Yes, we have had previous conversations with the FAA, and the Detroit office personnel staff was there at the time.
Okay, and is that person the person who makes the decision on behalf of the FAA on whether or not they think that the airport should open or close?
To the councilman through the chair, like any good bureaucracy, there's not one decision maker.
Sure.
It's a suite of folks in the FAA who make that decision.
So through the chair, how high does the bureaucracy go? Does President Trump need to sign off on this, or is this something that his underlings can do? Like, where is the top level of the FAA decision-making hierarchy?
For option 2, it would be the associate administrator in Washington that would make that decision.
The associate administrator in Washington?
Right.
And
Yeah,
who is
of
that?
FAA. Oh, geez. I'd have to get
We could get to the name.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just curious. So the associate administrator in Washington, through the chair, has the administration reached out to them to find out what their thoughts are on this?
To the councilman through the chair, the administration has reached out to various levels of the FAA, as has our federal delegation, and we are planning to go talk to some folks from the FAA later this month. So we'll be able to report back on.
Okay, so this would all be the Washington lobby effort. I have a question about page 20 and some of the lingo on here that I don't understand. The airfield capacity summary, table 1.1. Mostly I don't know what the airports are. I understand that CLE is Hopkins. Could you tell me what CGF, LNN, LP, that list on the far left is? What airports are those?
So, you want to
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead. I have it in front of me, that's why.
go ahead?
All right. CGF is Cuyahoga County.
Okay.
LLN is Lake Executive. Yep. Former Lost Nation, they changed their name.
I'm sorry, through the chair, this one's been confusing the heck out of me. Lost Nation Airport?
That's what they used to call it, yeah.
Well, they called what?
Lake Executive in Willoughby.
Lake County
Yeah.
was called Lost Nation, but now we're back to Lake County?
Yes.
Okay, but we're just calling it Lost Nation for fun?
It used to be called Lost Nation.
Okay,
yeah.
so but now we're supposed to call it Lake County.
Yes.
Okay, so Lake County is LNN.
Yes.
Okay, and then what's LPR?
Lorain County Regional.
Lorraine, okay. And then 1G3 and 1G5?
Kent University, and then Medina.
Kent
Yes.
is 1G3?
Yes.
Okay, and Medina is 1G5?
Yes.
Okay, and so through the chair, I did hear you already say that relievers aren't expected to land airplanes that would otherwise be destined for Hopkins. Through the chair, then what, again, is the the purpose of a reliever is just to, you said general aviation, the single props and the propeller airplanes, give them a place to land in need be?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And Burke isn't on here, isn't on this list. But what is the longest runway at Burke, through the chair?
It's right around 6,000.
6,000? So it's equivalent to the smallest one at Hopkins? I believe, roughly, okay. All right. Great. So through the chair, back to sort of Councilman Polensik's train of thought, this is a massive decision for the city of Cleveland, a massive decision for the body. And to review some of the stuff that we've already learned in these previous hearings, first off, let's just say it again, the city of Cleveland does not own Burke Lakefront Airport. It belongs to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Through the chair, that's correct, right?
Through the councilman, through the chair, there's a submerged land lease of the land that the city holds, and like the actual airport itself is also Division of Port Control.
I'm sorry, say it again?
So the land is, it's a submerged land lease. So
Right.
the city is the holder of that submerged land lease, and then anything built on top of the land, also city.
Right, we are the leasee, but the leaseor is the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, ODNR.
Correct.
Right, we do not own it.
We own the rights to the submerged land lease, but nobody owns. Yeah.
We have it's a
That's it.
lease.
Yes.
Right. So this is not land that the city of Cleveland can sell.
Correct.
Right. So that's really, really important because as people, and as we have to listen to thousands of people with uneducated opinions tell us what should be done down there, we have to remember that we can't sell this. There is no future apartment complex that we can just sell to a developer who's going to build an apartment complex. We can sublease it to somebody who wants to do something for a period of a sublease term, but typically developers don't want to build on something they don't own. So we're really looking at either municipal use, which is the golf course and soccer fields, the great soccer mecca that Cleveland is going to be someday. But we can't just sell it to somebody to build whatever they want to build. We've established that. Through the chair, there used to be a Formula One race down there. There used to be another use, and I talked to Mr. Gilbert over at the Cleveland Sports Commission, who told me that those are typically require sponsors. Those require corporate sponsors, and I think KeyBank used to be the corporate sponsor for the F1 Formula One race that used to happen down there. But without a big corporate sponsor, we can't really host something like that. However, through the chair, could you tell me whether or not the current condition of the airport is capable of continuing to support something like race car driving?
We,
The land or the airport?
yeah, we would have to look at the pavement condition to
Sure.
the point and get that and, you know, see what the requirements are for like a F1
Yeah.
race. I know they have very strict requirements on smoothness and whatnot that, you know, there was
Sure.
always an investment into the airport at the time when
Through-
they had those races.
Through the chair, have we looked at any economic investment impact studies based on investment in Burke, or are we only looking at economic impact of ending Burke?
The study that this report kind of was based on includes kind of what it could be, what it would take to reinvest in Burke, and what the possible outcome.
And through the chair, is that what we're getting in 2 weeks?
You have it already. So part of this study, the CHA study that is available online,
Okay.
includes a subsection of that talks about Burke and sort of Burke investment.
And the impact of, okay, I'll go back and check that out. Last thing, I'll just wrap up. The part of the calculation in my head goes back to a conversation I had with a friend of mine who manages an apartment building in the warehouse district. It's a pretty nice place, and the rents are pretty high, and I asked her who lives there. She told me it was mostly people that work in Chicago and New York who, you know, consider Cleveland a commuter city. And it dawns on me that we live in, you know, the old adage that all real estate is local is over. All real estate is global now. This is sort of the internet era. People buy and sell real estate in Cleveland throughout the world. And we are becoming a place for people who can work from home and visit work from time to time. And that's who fills up most of her apartment building in the warehouse district. and they fly into the office once a month or something like that, but do most of their work here in Cleveland where their dollar goes a little bit further. And I can't help but wonder if we're being, I don't want to say premature, even though I just did, about the future uses of a downtown airport. As the economy gets more global, as where you work and where you live are less tethered to each other, if having the convenience of a downtown airport is perhaps a better asset moving forward than it has been these last couple of decades, I don't really know. And I'm curious how we would even find out, other than to speculate. But I do just want to end with this, because I think it really bears repeating, and I don't think we can say it enough. Burke costs us nothing. It is subsidized by the airlines, who pay for their investment into Hopkins and Burke via, airline industry charges to flight customers who are mostly not Cleveland residents. I don't know what the percentage of people traveling through Hopkins is, but I bet most of them don't live in Cleveland. So right now we've got a free ride on the airport, on the lakefront. It's not costing us anything. And we can go over the list of all the things we do spend money on. But I would also say that it is the government's job to spend money on things, right? We invest in infrastructure, we pay for things. That's kind of our job. But Burke isn't something that we pay for. It's a free asset to the residents, the region, and in that it has some economic benefit. It's greater than zero, and is a net benefit to the city right now. And I share some of my colleagues' concerns that anything we do there could potentially turn into a net negative down the line. And I think that's something that we have to think about as we make a decision that's generational once more. So that's all I have, Chairman. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few questions pertaining to what's been going on with Burke. As I listened to my other colleagues, just come to mind, some things came up when my colleague brought up our previous mayor, White, when he looked at the Burke Lakefront. So back in, when we had Mayor White, he maintained the support for the Burke Lake Airport and allowed it to operate as a reliever facility rather than taking steps to close it. So due to that, and that was back in 2001. 25 years later, we're in 2026. So none of us per se, I can't say who was here. I know Mike was here during that time. But over the 25 years that it has sat the way it is, and it has been operated the way it has been, it comes to the conclusion as to merge it as the new lakefront project that Mayor Beard would like to see. So for those last 25 years, could anyone answer why hasn't it been looked at to be done anything less than what is planned to be done now? Chair to
To the councilwoman through the chair, I think Burke Lakefront Airport's success has really kind of followed the same trend as Cleveland's general economic success. And so as we've kind of lost population, lost businesses, we've also lost airport traffic. As we're, and I agree with Councilman Polensek that we need to really make strong efforts to bring more people, more businesses, more jobs to the city of Cleveland. We don't do that by keeping things the same. We do that by trying to find opportunities to compete. And one of the ways that we see as a way to compete with other cities is to better utilize our lakefront. There's 500 acres between the site where the Brown Stadium is and Burke Lakefront Airport. That could be publicly accessible land that is an asset to the city of Cleveland that attracts people and businesses here that would then, again, grow our economy, grow our population. But really, when you look at the success kind of trend line of Burke, it's very much in line with the city's general economic outlook.
Okay, and I can understand that. We're looking at more economic growth. We're looking at a more futuristic idealistic of what is needed for our next generation. And I know that is what we're looking to build for the next generation, not what we didn't have, not what we haven't done. And it takes a long time to look at another agenda and to create something that's sustainable for the next generation. So due to that, my next question is, you have the closure options as 1, 2, and 3, and say that, chair to the team, these closure options, the lake, most of the grant obligations expire in 2039, correct?
That's right.
So, but here in the first option, it also states from, what's your name again, sir?
Mark.
Mark, it states that the operation, if the grants close in 2039, but it also states here in option 1, wait for the grant obligations to expire, still, Burke Lakefront have to operate 14 additional years after 2039 per se? I was kind of confused on that point, Chair,
Yeah,
to Mark.
to the councilwoman, this got me too. It means starting in 2026, we would have to operate Burke for the next 14 years
Okay.
without taking on any additional federal grants. Because every time we get a federal grant, it would push back that date of when those grant obligations expire. So if we wanted to say, okay, maybe we're not ready today, but we want to be ready in 2039, that means that we'd have to stop accepting federal grants for Burke in order to, have that 2039 date. Otherwise, that date just keeps getting pushed back.
Okay, all right, thanks for clearing that up. And I know this is a preliminary discussion. And sometimes preliminary can mean something behind the scenes too, already and operational. So my next question, just to be clear, so to this point, Chair, to the team, there has been no hidden applications been submitted to FAA at all.
Everything that all of the communications, like the mayor and county's letter to the federal delegation, all the reports that we've had to date are all public.
Okay. All right, because I know that, Chair, to the team, that you're setting up community meetings. Next, I think 2 community meetings are being set up. So this can be presented to the residents at our community meetings and per se at the meetings that you already have designated to set up. So the residents can have a very understanding of why you want to close Burke Lake Airport for the various reasons that can accommodate the next generation. Because I know, Chair, to the team, this is all about the next generation. And we have to understand we can't sit to be stuck because we'll never move forward. And change is difficult when we do present something that we have to take something away that has so much meaning to the current residents that have enjoyed everything that's been going on with Burke Lakefront, especially the air show. I know I posed that question the first time we met, is how much the air show generate for the city. And I know you said basically nothing, but I have to appreciate my chair who said that when people come to town, you have hotels, you have restaurants. That generates for the city. So thank you, Chair, for clearing that up, because I also looked more into that and you were correct. So and after that, I went and did a tour, as was suggested. I went and did a tour there, and I seen so much great things that was going on there that I didn't even know that was. And due to your list here, it shows that major lease agreements that everybody there from my conversation and my takeaway, they are really upset about even thinking about closing and leaving that location. Because all what they have put into, all the tours that go on regardless of the air show, and also Signature, far as my takeaway, they do not want to leave. They want to stay because they doing so much and have done so much, and they still want to be a part of that area, even if it's split. So to say the least, I know the conversation is still going on and everything is preliminary, but we have to look at the outcome of what can be sustainable, hopefully, but also to know that letting go is hard. And the next generation, we're building for the next generation too. And to look at all that, we got to get that input from everyone, how this going to be sustainable, moving forward, per se. So that's my take on it. Thanks, Chair. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilman Gray, and I believe if no one else is looking to get back on, Councilman Casey will close us out.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just real briefly, their closure options, there's only three, these are the only three options for closure, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then,
To the councilman through the chair, there could be some sort of hybrid option of partially doing the FAA process and doing an active, you can maybe mix a little bit of this.
okay. So in option one, you're not looking to do option one. You don't want to wait, correct?
Correct.
Are you guys looking at option three? Is that the option that you guys are looking at?
We're looking at both 2 and 3.
Okay. And under your own admission, I just want to make sure, if you go with option 2, right, which is the FAA option, that it's going to cost us at least $750,000 in studies that need to be done if we go with 2. So,
That's what I would anticipate, yes.
I mean, that's probably a minimum, correct, of $750,000 or
It's a good estimate, I think.
okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that, I just find it ironic that that's the way that the administration wants to invest in Burke is spending $750,000 to close it. But if we have to go that option or that hybrid option of investing in studies to close Burke, is that general fund dollars, or would those be dollars out of Hopkins? Would that be an enterprise fund dollars, or would that be general fund
Yeah,
dollars?
I would anticipate it would be general fund dollars to the councilman through the chair.
Okay.
Ward 13th Street resurfacing.
Not from Ward 13th Street resurfacing, though, because I don't get that much money. All right, I just wanted to make sure that I'm clear that if we go with option 2, that we're going to be investing in studies to close Burke.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Casey. Hearing no other questions, we'll conclude today's meeting. We're going to reconvene on April 15th, which again was initially scheduled to be talking with kind of the real estate community. However, since the administration has come forward with some thoughts, we will speak more specifically to that. Was there something?
Yeah, and I have a question for the chair. Will we be hearing from anybody else aside from the administration? Are we going to have a hearing to hear from Burke people, the air show, other aviation experts? I mean, we're getting a lot of the information firsthand from the administration, but we're getting a lot of secondhand stuff from other entities. Will we have a hearing for, I mean, obviously the administration wants to close Burke, but there's an entity out there that doesn't want to close Burke. It's our job to be as knowledgeable as we can. Will we be bringing those proponents who are in support of keeping Burke open to the table to get information from them as well?
Sure. So in designing this initial set of 4 hearings, I will say was my reaction to the joint letter from the mayor and the county executive
advocating for closure, and my goal has been to really understand the theory behind that letter. It's, I think, very clear that there's more work to be done and more voices to be heard, including all of those who you just mentioned. So I am committing to that occurring. We haven't scheduled it as of
Okay.
yet.
All right.
But as I sort of alluded to earlier, my thought was trying to work those aspects into what had already been announced would become difficult for all of us to digest. It would be just information overload. So that's after April 15th.
Another round
We
or
will
something?
plan for some other round of information, or whether it's one hearing or multiple hearings, that will allow those voices the opportunity to come before us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Was there are you looking for public comment or something? So come ahead forward. Normally, if you're looking to anybody wanting to come for public comment, you can speak with the clerk in advance of the meeting. But if you would like to come forward and turn on your microphone, you can introduce yourself and speak for up to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Chairman and Council. Kyle Lewis with the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. We're also a member of the group you just mentioned, Councilman Casey, the Lakefront Airport Preservation Partnership, which is users of Burke, and even more national entities have signed on to that as well. To answer your question, Councilman Harsh, Daniel Edwards is the Deputy Administrator of Airports. I'm glad I could bring that information to you. A couple of points, and I'll be quick. A grant is not a loan. You're obligated on these grants. So just paying them back, it shouldn't be looked at as a loan. And again, I think the administration didn't do a good job explaining how those grants work. There are 40 obligations in the grant obligations. One of those is operating the airport as an airport. A couple of other things, reliever status. That's kind of been a nebulous conversation so far. There is a matrix the FAA uses to determine reliever status of airports. They can get it wrong sometimes. It's based on reported numbers to the FAA, operational numbers, based aircraft, et cetera. Generally, some of those can be 100 plus based aircraft, runway length, number of operations, et cetera. So I would encourage some experts to come in and speak about the reliever status, and that can change. With each NIPIAS reports that is done every couple of years, those statuses do kind of ebb and flow with operational data. Also, Burke is positioned, I would say it's positioned to maybe recapture reliever status if the operational numbers are reported correctly. And also investment into Burke. The administration has said nobody is interested in investing on that airport. That is false. Every operator on that airport, Atheris, the air show, everybody, Signature, even Argonaut, the Maritime and Aviation High School, they're waiting for long-term leases to invest on that airport. The city's not offering them. That is why the airport is in the condition it is. That is why the administration is saying it's not used. They are not accepting investment. And it's a disservice to this council for the administration to play that narrative. I encourage you all to speak with all the users on the airport and get the true picture. I think that's my 3 minutes. I appreciate it. Happy to help any way we can. Thank you for the time.
Then thank you, and before you leave, if you could speak with the clerk so she can get your name and information just for our own records. I anticipate there will be further discussions and even your presence at this table. So with that, we will conclude this meeting with Transportation and Mobility and reconvene on April 15th.